Hey, it's Norm from Tested. I'm here at the California State Fair where it's hosting the first National Drone Finals competition. This is Scott Reflin. You're the race director of the Drone Nationals. Tell us about the event.
Yeah, it was epic. That's all I can say is it was just epic. And the reason why it was epic is that we were doing a lot of experimentation on a lot of different things, and this is the first time that we ever had all of these volunteers all together. First time ever in the history of FPV racing, we had 120 pilots across 9 countries, and we had 2 national TV stations broadcast it live, so that's pretty epic.
Now, pilots have been competing on their own for a while now. Underground races, meetups. Every time you drive by, you see the flags, basically. You know some FPVs going on. But this is an event of a whole other magnitude, just in terms of the organization. Live streaming, getting heats, getting actual competition. Tell us about the gear required, because there's a lot of logistics required just to get this stuff set up.
Yes. So what we were trying to experiment with is drone racing a scalable sport? Is there going to be a drone sport, a legitimate drone sport in the future? And so this was the question that we all had on our minds. There's a lot of people that are interested in putting a nickel in the slot, but at this point, was it going to be feasible? And so my little takeaway, my little benchmark was going to be, could I have 8 pilots in the air at 5:15 when all that entire midway started rolling with everybody else's webcam, all the IP, all the cell phones, and this is a big stadium, a 12,000 seat stadium, and so it has radio frequency issues and all that kind of stuff. So we were all testing that, and so what I asked is, I called up everybody in the whole entire industry as far as and fast as I could get and say, stop being competitor for the day and let's do typical fare, which is you compete against cows and pies and drones, right? And so in that way, I got everybody to suspend their business-to-business competition, and then I had people that were working just head-to-head on solving these big barrier issues, because I couldn't solve them all myself. I just have to have everybody else help us on that part of it.
From a technology standpoint, it's fascinating because FPV racing really lends itself to being a spectator sport. You can sit in the stands, watch the quads fly, or you can actually put on FPV goggles because it's broadcast on an analog frequency. And so you just see waves of people putting on these Fat Sharks or whatever they want, or watching monitors and getting exactly what the pilot's seeing and hopefully not throwing up. That itself makes it really unique. And we saw that today, right?
Yes. Yeah, and my experiment for that is the Fat Shark goggles or displays, is that going to be the new fashion accessory that binoculars once were for racing? Because we're going into that area. And what's exciting for me is that, I came from a big VR background and been interested in augmented reality for quite some time. And so I see we've been inching along in the space of this great mix of virtual reality. The first pieces of virtual reality I've seen that has been contextually bolted together is what you see like on the 1st and 10 on any football game, where the first yard, that 1st and 10 line is mapped in a contextual relevance to the field. Well, we're getting to that space now where the drone racing is still locked in 2D space. We're still on the 2D plane. Where I'm headed with this thing is 3D racing with racing hoops and flags in a 3D space, and when you take your goggles off, they're not there. So we're heading in that direction, and that's a very exciting space to be.
You want to develop a course, get the pilots comfortable, because they're really talented pilots. And there's an analogy, because we're on a soccer field right here, there's an analogy to maybe NASCAR, the stands, watching it, but there's also maybe like ice skating, because there's a performance aspect to it. They're really showing off their skills, everything they've practiced in their local parks and beaches, and that is a whole other part of the competition, right?
Yes. And so I'm guessing out of the whole thing we just saw today, we probably had 2,000-3,000 people watching on our live stream today. We probably saw at least 5 new tricks that came out of that. Like Chad Nowak's vertical corkscrew, where he flew like at a 90-degree angle and just corkscrewed it that way. That was epic. I've never seen that before. Or Zoe's inverted flight. You only seen that in 3D helicopter, and so she was flying inverted flight with a quad. And so in a competition, you might have had somebody do that in their backyard, but never in a competition and like that. So this is the innovations that are really, really quite exciting.
I'm getting chills when you mention this stuff, because it really feels like, 90s skateboarding and X Games when you see, the top competitors kind of doing things that no one's ever seen before. That's so awesome. Is it going to happen next year?
Oh yeah, and a lot more over here. And what was interesting about this space is that this was also a test from the regulation point of view. And so we hit two big barriers. We hit the radar on two big government agencies. That was the FAA and the FCC. And so instead of going, whining and cringing and all that stuff like that, I talked to John, who came over. John was the FAA agent that came over here, and I said, John, you need to be my mentor, because I need to understand all of your 30, 40 years of big air show races, because he's the FAA inspector for all the big air shows, and he's seen a lot of stuff. And I said, tell me if I do something critically wrong, and if I don't, and you see something that I need to fix, give me your nod, give me your wink, and let me fix it, because what we can do is, if it's fast and iterative, we got a lot of smart guys around here who can really fix it fast. And he was like, right on, let's go. And so that's when the FAA suddenly started playing in a really proactive sense, that I got now a mentor who's an FAA agent, and that's pretty cool. This is now their best case study that we can go back and say, here's our best case study to help change and lobby for better FPV racing that's scalable.
It's really breaking new ground, working through those growing pains, and I love that you're working with not only the experienced organizations, aeronautics organizations, but also the agencies in charge of regulating this stuff, and everyone's having a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do now is chat with one of the competitors and see how they went.
Yeah, cool, man.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Thanks for coming out. It was awesome.
It's great to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay, and now I'm here with Chad, Final Glide Oz, because you're from Australia. You made a big trip over here to compete in the Drone Nationals. How you doing?
Pretty good. Very tired. It's been a pretty full-on week.
Yeah, you guys competed yesterday and today, and you just actually competed in the finals heat, your heat of the finals. Can you tell me about this course and what you thought about the course?
Oh, it's a great little course. It's quite a tight course, a flowing course. If you're taking the right lines, like any racing course, like with cars, it's quite easy. But if you get offline, you've got flags, you've got banners, you've got gates. There's lots of things that can take you out. So you've got to be careful that you just don't go too fast.
That's right, because a lot of people, if you crash, that's it. You got to make all 5 laps and get the best time. And you did 5 laps in your qualifier in like a minute and a half.
Correct, yes.
That's insane. Yeah. Now, I really wanted to ask you about the freestyle competition, because for a race, you just got to make the turns. Once you learn the course, you got it. Freestyle is really interesting, because it's almost like ice skating, where there's like difficult maneuvers you can do, and you're building like a 3-minute performance. What's your approach to doing a freestyle routine?
Look, what I tend to do when I go flying by myself is just that. So I just pretended that I'm in a park and having fun. It's kind of like painting the sky, or like skateboard skaters in a half pipe, or BMX riders doing stunts. It's an expression of you and your emotions at that time. And I've got a routine of tricks that I can do, and just try to flow them in together. And I really enjoy making videos on my YouTube channel and putting it to music. I really enjoy the editing. I enjoy trying out new tricks and just doing new things like that. So this competition is just an extension of what I like doing when I'm just with the friends.
Let's talk about some of those tricks in your routine. In your head, what are the things that you know you're comfortable doing, and did you take any risks in your routine, some things that you thought might be a little more difficult that might get you crashing?
Well, the big issue here is you got lots of flags everywhere, so when you're doing tumbling tricks, you can actually get distracted by all the flags and can put you off. So it's no different to what I'm doing normally, but just got to be careful of everything. There's different obstacles, and it's a smaller course to what I'm used to as well.
You're tumbling, you're flying upside down, bouncing up. What are some of the things, if someone's just starting out flying a quadcopter, FPV, and they can do basic turns, what are the tricks they can learn? What would you recommend?
Flips and rolls is what you start off on. That's probably the hardest one to get there. Being upside down in a quadcopter is quite disorientating, because you're using a fisheye lens. You can get disorientated very, very quickly. So flips and rolls, and I always just simply say, get yourself a setup that's very robust, that you only break props, so you're not afraid to damage anything, and you learn from your mistakes. So a lot of the tricks that I've learnt are just simply from doing something and stuffing it up and going, well, that was different, and then working out and then refining it, and all of a sudden you have a new trick, and people go, wow, how did you do that?
And we got to credit to your setup as well. You, of course, like everyone here, built your own quad. Can we look at your gear and what your quad is made out of?
This is pretty much like most of the quads. It's a carbon fibre frame. This thing's called an Alien, and all credit to my good friend Brian back in my hometown of Brisbane. He just designed this quad and gave me this frame 2 weeks ago, and it really blew my mind how balanced of a quad it was. And I did used to fly different frames, and 2 weeks before the Nationals, I decided, you know what, I'm going to try different frames. So it was a big risk for me to take, but it seems to have paid off. The guys at Immersion RC certainly got me out here, and I got to give credit to them for getting me out, and the guys at Fat Shark. If it wasn't for all these people that are helping me out, I just wouldn't get there. It's a long way.
Well, we're glad you're here, and thank you for an amazing performance in the freestyles. Good luck in the finals heat, and thanks a lot. It's great to meet you.
No worries. Thank you.